Right, here we go. So, from the beginning. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to week 4 of Circle Hosts and Training for Bismarang. As we were just talking about off camera, a lot of this is very, very useful for building your own social media strategies and general content strategies for anything else that you might be doing in or out of the marketing space. So, without further ado, just as normal, a few little acknowledgements, particularly to Gina Bianchini and the fantastic team at Mighty Networks in Palo Alto. And just a quick resume of, I'll try and keep this as briefer than normal, but remember that community design is all about the power of your community and how it comes from bringing people together to master something interesting together on that quest that you defined earlier on in this course. That community design generally has a structure of 5 steps, which initially is your big purpose, why we're all in the room, a year in the life, where we're all going on our quest, and you've identified what benefits that people are going to reap at the end of the year, where they've got to at the end of 12 months. The monthly themes, which is the general roadmap of relevancy to get you to that point or to get your members to that point. The weekly calendar, where we set the habits that we all take part in, and those daily actions, which are not just churning out content, but where we're trying to get people to interact. Your big purpose is the motivation for this community that you're developing. It's something that can only be accomplished by bringing these exact people together to answer that call. And we looked at the year in the life and where we were going, and therefore we've already identified our member results, your results, and if you think there's specific circle results you'd like to achieve, you went through those and listed all of them. We then said that to get to that achievement of that after that 12 monthly aims, where your members and yourself reap the benefits, we had these three general pillars of wisdom, which were the monthly themes, where we keep it interesting for the whole year, weekly calendar, where we keep it regular and we build habits for hosts and members, and our daily actions, where we get members talking within the circle, removing a lot of the burden from the host. The idea being that you want to get to a position where technically or realistically, the circle is running itself. We then built our monthly themes into how we're going to roll them out over the next 12 months. And then we went on and talked to this, particularly last week, about your weekly calendar and how it is about structure and creating habits. But whereas your daily actions are about driving contributions. And actually the majority of the really interesting content actually will be the contributions that come from your members in their small answers, questions to polls, and interactions with each other. Remember that the weekly calendar that you've been creating is there to create the habit for your members to come back and contribute. It's less about what's in your weekly calendar and more about sticking to it consistently. It's all about that habit of understanding that every Tuesday evening we come in here and we do this call. On Wednesday morning, there's the summary. On Thursday evenings, we have our Circle Leaders Circle catch up, all part of the same thing. And then there's lots of interaction going on in between, which is the dailies. A good weekly calendar generates or highlights contributions. A good day in your weekly calendar is one that offers valuable learning from you as a host, or contributions from other members who are sharing stories, experiences, and ideas. And as I've touched on before, ideally not advice, because that tends to truncate the conversation. It aims for a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 6 days. More is not necessarily better. 3 strong days are much, much, much better than 6 mediocre ones. And therefore, when we're building our content plan, which we're going to go on to soon, it's talking about starting narrow with a small number of fixed content highlights, and then we can build it up as time goes on. And if you are at all worried that you're not going to be consistent, start with 3 days a week and aim to do them consistently for 4 weeks. That's 12 well-defined days in total, which is you should be able to do. And even if you can't do that 12, reduce it to 2, but keep it consistent on those specified days. The daily actions, as you remember, we were talking about, it gives your members a clear way to contribute. It gives it's quick and gives everyone a reason to come back and see what else is going on. You find that when you first use Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, you had a lot of trepidation when you first commented or something or posted something, and you kept going back to see. And then as soon as you got some interaction, it all got quite exciting for you. That's exactly the same in this. And if you have, we'll look at identifying the right type of members in a minute. If you've got the right type of members, that they will be all interesting, creating interesting contributions and content. The second thing about your daily actions is it reiterates the value in your community. When you're not in someone's notifications, they immediately forget about you. You're out of sight, out of mind, and especially in this age of mobile connectivity when there are multiple platforms out there and around. It complements and enhances your skill building. On the days you may be posting skills or profile stories in your community, a daily action is the way you ask people to contribute their story or insights on the topic. And it can be flexible over time. So you might start off with 2 days a week where you're doing Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then you might actually move that to Mondays and Wednesdays and add another day on a Friday or whatever it may be. So although we're going to stick to it for this first 30 days, you can, of course, change it going on further on down the line. This is an electronic medium. You can do what you like. With the daily actions, make it fast, make it fun, and make it intriguing. Your goal is to come back to someone to come back and contribute. And a contribution might just be a comment, a like, a post, a cheer, or a quick sentence or two. You're not necessarily asking them to contribute 300 words in the content pile. You did your homework, part 1, where you decided on your weekly calendar, and you did your homework in part 2, where you brainstormed and generated at least 30 questions or polls, and then reduced those down to your top 14 as daily actions. Okay, so how did it go? Well, we're short of time, so we're just going to pass on by that, but I have seen a lot in the news feed, all looking good. So today we're going to touch on your first 90 days. So everything that you've done to this point is going to now become really useful, and as we build this plan. So there's a couple of things that you need to be aware of. The first thing is that you need to write it down. At this point, you have all the tools you need to create a thriving community, as I said, but by writing it down your first 90 days and following it, you'll be able to track what works, what doesn't, and what you want to experiment with next. And I promise you that what you think will work might work, but it probably won't. And what doesn't is what actually illustrates where you can go forward. So don't be frightened that when you do something and you start it, that it doesn't work. That's absolutely fine and all perfectly normal. If you were doing one of my marketing strategy courses, I'd be saying, don't forget that 80% of anything new that you do will fail. It's the 20% that you're looking for, but you have to do the 100% of effort to find the 80% that's going to fail. So consequently, you should start simple. All you're aiming to do in these first 90 days is establish a clear, big purpose or quest of what you're going to master together, and that weekly rhythm. Now, you set out your weekly purpose already as you have been working through the last couple of weeks, but that's the weekly purpose that you have or the big purpose that you have in your head. You may well find that as you progress through the year, that in fact your big purpose adjusts slightly based on what your members are feeding back to you and what you might need for them. Okay. The other thing, as I say, is that it's in the weekly rhythm that your community will start to take off. So we are now 5, 6, 7 people in the room, etc. And it probably didn't require me to send an email or to send a post out today to remind you to come in here. We're all now getting into that habit that here we are on a Tuesday evening, and this is what we do. And the third point to remember is be curious, try stuff, and reframe your problems. So everyone is nervous at the outset. Everybody. I think the other circle hosts in the room, myself, Alison, and Eve, will tell you the first time we did this, it was like, really? Oh, fingers crossed. But trust the process and be curious. When you launch something you thought was going to be popular and it wasn't, that's amazing because you've just learned something. It's the point I was touching on above. Do not be frightened of failure. And it also goes back to when we were talking about earlier on in this course of saying trying to be perfect is your enemy, because if you set yourself up to try and be perfect and it isn't perfect, which it won't be, then in fact, actually, you're going to kill your own confidence. Just be aware that in fact, it's the feedback that you're looking for. It's that interaction to establish that clear purpose and that weekly rhythm that's your real aim here. Okay. So as I said, Be curious, especially when it isn't working. And I put this in here again because it is so important that we will touch on this again next week. Okay. But when something fails or doesn't, when I say fail, I don't mean fail, when it doesn't go as well as you think it's going to go after you've launched, okay, that is not a complete disaster. In fact, actually, it's not only every cloud is a silver lining, but this is a particularly silver lining. A couple of things you can ask yourself is the transformation I'm promising clear enough? So you're here to offer your members their own transformation. And you do this through your big purpose, as we said. If this is too general, or it's broad, or lacks clarity, it may be the culprit. There's a very old adage in advertising that give one message at a time. And there's some piece of film somewhere where somebody stood on a stage with a advertising guru, and they throw them a tennis ball, and they say, catch this, and they throw the tennis ball and they catch it. They throw them two, and they can just about catch two. As soon as you throw them three at a time, they drop all three of them. And it's the same here. If your messaging is not clear enough, or simple enough, or overcomplicated, and you're actually trying to give 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different messages all at the same time, none of them will sink in. Okay, so is the transformation or the big purpose that you've identified, are you making it clear enough? That sort of leads on to the next bit of, have I niched down enough? Can you get more specific with your ideal member? For example, if you have an existing email list or group and no one shows up, who do you want to target from that list more specifically? So initially you'll be focusing on that first 10 or 20 of the right people. They say, I have 10 in here, but or 10 or 20. Actually, again, when we talk to some of the other circle hosts in this, you will see that in fact, we start off with our first 6 to 10 of our really what we think are our ideal target customers, and preferably people that we know that we're not likely to get embarrassed in front of. The third thing you can ask yourself is, am I clear on my member needs? If people haven't sprung into your circle, or it doesn't have to be in a circle or your whatever other medium you might be using, and they haven't been there, although you've invited them in, etc., really don't be afraid to pick up the phone and ask them. Call people and do little spot interviews. When I say interviews, that's far too a big word for it. I mean, just give them a call and say, look, this is what we're trying to do. It obviously didn't appeal. Can you just tell me why not? Or did you not just get around to it, or what? If nothing else, you'll learn something along the way that you can quickly incorporate into your first 90 days and reignite with you and your members. Okay, so it's just all that little basic feedback that gives us those ideas of how we're going to go forward. Another very good example of this whole platform of Bismarang, actually we took it through the idea through the design think process, of which I think we made 5 or 6 calls 3 times over to ask specific actually members of the Facebook group, as it was at the time, is this what you're looking for? Is this what you're looking for? And what about if we did this? And actually it made us niche down and got us really, really clear about what our platform was going to be. And it's the same thing with your circle. It's, am I very, very clear on what these people need? Okay, so to do all this, you already have all the bits, okay? If you're up to date with your homeworks, you'll see that in fact, I have been sharing what is now a 6-page document, which on the Wannapreneur Circle launch plan, or the content plan, or the workings of it, when I took one of the Wannapreneur Circle through this process, and that's what I've been sharing with you. If you've been doing the same thing, if you've kept them all in one document, then if they're not in all one document, I suggest you do, just for simplicity's sake. But all those exercises of defining your big purpose, your year in a life, and then your monthly themes, and your weekly calendar, and your daily actions. If you've got them all there, you've got all the bits that you need to be taking on to the next stage. So once you've got all those bits, now we're going to build the plan. Now, I usually do this in Excel. There are lots of tools out there that will help you build content plans for content marketing and all that sort of stuff. And for me, whenever I want to use a piece of software, before I buy that piece of software, particularly business information piece of software, I tend to build what I need first in Excel or Google Sheets or whatever, however clunky that is, because so that I really get down to the niche of what I really need in that piece of software. Okay. And for what you're about to do in this, certainly creating this plan for the first 90 days, Excel or Google Sheets is perfectly doable, because all you're doing is creating a small database. So as you can see, the first thing that you need to do is create a timetable. And this is very similar. It's very simple. Top left-hand corner, we have the name, what it is. I want to know content requirements. And this is from back in, we did this in July. It was from the 1st of August 2019 to the 31st of July 2020. That's that 12-month period. But all you can see at the moment is this first 3 months. And then very simply, down the left-hand side, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. If you're going to do Saturday and Sundays as well, that's fine. Saturday and Sunday, you can slide those in as well. And repeat them 5 times over, because there's never more than 5 weeks in a month. And then I then created, with each month, I then created 4 other columns. The first one is the media type. The second one is what I've called in plan, but actually it's just the date. And then the third one is prepped, and the fourth one is delivered. Don't worry, there's a swipe file copy of this Excel sheet in which will be coming in the notes along with this recording of the video. But let me just talk you through it as well. And what I've done actually is then I've built it there, and then I've just stepped and repeated. So August, September, October. You could call this month 1, month 2, month 3, or you could call it January 2020, February 2020, March 2020. April 2020, and right across the sheet. The next step then is to remember the document that I just showed you a moment ago. So this document here, where you've got all your monthly themes, weekly calendars, and daily actions. You're then going to populate that plan, or that diary that you've just built, with the content out of there. So we do this by, you'll see I've inserted the monthly themes. So for January 19 to August 2019, the monthly theme was basics of a business plan. And then for September 2019, it was marketing frameworks was the theme, macroeconomic fastballs. And remember, you might remember that we were talking originally about looking at what was going on in the economic and macroeconomic around it. And at the time we wrote this, we thought Brexit was going to be August 31st. So I actually built that into the end of October and putting my thoughts in there and all that sort of stuff. One of the only few times I will ever do politics online. Okay, but that went all the way across the monthly themes all the way. So I took those 12 monthly themes, the year in the life, and built it right across left to right. And then we then built the content. You can see that on the media type. So my weekly calendar had an article on Monday, every Monday. So you can see the article repeats every Monday. And then we were doing questions and polls on Tuesday and Wednesday, Zoom call on Thursday, and then Friday fun was a simple little, very simple meme, etc. So the content plan, I can't remember why the first 2 weeks aren't filled properly, but as you can see, you can go on forward. So I built out the content plan. I knew that. So in this first Monday, this 5th of August, there would be an article entitled, what is a business plan and why you should, and I'll come up with whatever the rest of that title is. Then you can see the following Monday, it was an article based on start with a basic canvas. The Monday after that, it's what's the long-term game, the lifestyle or exit here. And then that was followed up the following day with a question or poll. Basically, are you a lifestyler or an exiteer? And then after that, then the following day, Wednesday, is have you had any other business training? And that was a question or poll as well. The Friday funds were just simple memes that I'd rip off every Friday. Well, actually, I ripped off about 10 or 12 up front, so that I could create scheduled posts within Bizmarang. at the time, and actually now, I have all this bits of content that have already been used somewhere else. So actually, I took what is the business plan and why you've been through it, and the investment stages, and what training do you do, and all that stuff. These are actually, I'm using existing articles that I already have, slightly repurposed for what I wanted to do. So building those main chunks of content wasn't that difficult because I had the vast majority, I had a lot of it already, certainly for the first 3 months. And the questions and polls actually then came out specifically out of those daily actions, excuse me, those daily actions that you identified within the plan, the homeworks that you've already done today. Then, the clever bit, and what we're going to do is talk about implementing it now. So you've got all your content, you've created it, or certainly decided what content needs to be created. But I then also wanted to make sure that I never got caught out without having the content being done or prepped. And this is where those other two columns come in of prepped and delivered. So prepped to me means that piece of content, well, sorry, first off, these cells can either be green or red, and that's just by coloring. They're using the fill button at the top of the page in Excel, and whether I want to color them green or red. So prepped, when something is prepped, as far as I was concerned, it meant that the content was written, all the assets had been found, so all the pictures that I was going to use, all the links that were going to go into it, etc., were all done, written, and put into some form of file, such as an Excel document or Word document or whatever like that. And as soon as I had prepped the work, for example, over here, so this was probably done at the end of July. So I prepped all the elements that were required for each of these. And when I had all the bits, all the hard work done, I just made that cell green. Now that just tells me that in fact there's no prep work required for that month, because it's anything that is green does not require prep work. So it means as soon as I look at it, I can see straight away what work still needs to be done on it. The second thing is that actually was the second column. It's delivered. And for me on Bizmarang, delivered is when it's in a post and scheduled, ready to go. So you can schedule posts in Bizmarang. So as I think I mentioned before, I have been at a point with this group and the circle and another circle where I've been 3 weeks ahead, where all of this has been green all the way ahead, apart from the Friday funds, because I tended to do those on a Thursday night, ready for the following day. And they would be there'd be fun memes based on particularly what was going on in and around in the rest of the world at that time. But as I said, I did have about 15 of them lined up, ready to go, so if I ever got caught short. So the point being is that as you work through your plan, you can see how much work is left to be done, and that you're not going to get it caught out. So if today was Wednesday, the 27th of August, down here, I would know that in fact today is questions and polls, and I've already scheduled it, and so I've already written that question poll, and it's already been scheduled. Whereas I know that in fact, actually in 2 weeks' time, I'm okay until Monday the 2nd of September, but after that, actually I need to start prepping this content ready to go, and I can have a splash page straight off. And I've referred to this, you'll see that in the name of this file, when you download it later on, in brackets it says rolling doc. And that means what it is actually I have as a single doc that I keep it on my desktop. And a rolling doc means that it's not fixed, that in fact it's updated constantly as we go along. Some people like to record them, and so they'll create a new one for every week, for example. So, they would say this one, I think was from the 28th of July or something like that. And that rather than just being a rolling doc, that when they get the following day on the 4th of August, the following week on the 4th of August or whatever, they would actually keep, they would save the doc, so they saw the progress that they made from the week before and all that sort of stuff. In this one, because we're not gathering any real data, I don't think that's absolutely applicable. Okay, so guess what your homework is going to be? I suspect that Suzanne, you may be slightly ahead because you've gone a little bit further on this one. But what I'd like to do is just actually, before we go any further, is just open it up to the floor, particularly Alison. You've used this and slightly and adapted it slightly. What did you do? You're muted, Alison. It's not just your cold. Yeah, you're still muted.
Sorry, I lost.
There you go.
I was trying to open my sheet at the same time.
All right.
Yeah, I did very much as you had there. But do you know when she does all of her training, she had good names for things. You see the way that you have your Mondays there? Let me look at my sheet. So I had written on mine, for example, Monday question of the week. Wednesday was like Wednesday hump. Friday was Friday feature.
Mm-hmm.
And then Friday, I always featured a useful tool. And that's the way I did it. And I actually, funny, I was listening to a Facebook Live thing earlier on, and it was an American lady. And she called her Facebook Live Transformational Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's quite good that when you're planning it, that you actually try to think of sort of catchy names that go with the days that are to your circle as well, because that kind of helped you.
Okay. Yeah, that certainly might remind people to come back in again. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The way that she ended with his as well, because he does that on his circle as well.
Yeah, he has his yeah, he does. No, absolutely. If that's what makes you feel good, then help yourself. Eve, is there anything? Sorry, is there anything else, Alison?
Sorry, I was just going to say another thing that I did do that actually worked really well. After I had started my circle, I actually did a poll in my circle about what people wanted to see monthly and weekly, and I got some fantastic ideas about future monthly themes that I hadn't thought about.
Yeah, cool. Okay, absolutely. And as I said, there is nothing to stop you changing your plan. So if you want to change the monthly themes, absolutely fine. The other thing that I didn't mention here is that one of these pillar articles that I have in here actually relate to the theme of the month. Okay, so what is a business plan? So basics of a business plan. What is a business plan was the first article of that month. But actually, when you get down into things like what's the long-term game, lifestyle or exterior, that is all about what the long-term direction of your business is going and how you decide, particularly on an exit of how it's going to go. So that all comes back to that basic theme of the basics of a business plan. But you can see as soon as we get into the next week, we have a little bit of a hangover of investment stages, which is really the basis of a business plan. But later on, then we get into articles such as advertising is not marketing, because we're now basing this on marketing frameworks. And then the next one is W2F is customer focus, then needs messaging and all that sort of stuff. And again, when we get into this one, it was on the macroeconomics. This one I was actually, this article is giving a little bit of my history, and which is OBL and my part in his downfall, as Osama bin Laden and my part in his downfall. Well, actually, his part in my downfall. Work both ways in that one. Well, that's read the article. It's there from what happened on September the 11th, not just the rest of the world and what happened in New York, but the effect that it had on lots of other small business people, or even tech entrepreneurs at the time. So anyway, but it was all about that was all about macroeconomic fastballs. That one just happened to be about 9/11. And then the next week we're talking about is every cloud has a silver lining. So in fact, actually, when we got hit by Lehman Brothers going down in 2008, yes, it was really bad, but there was also some really good stuff that came out of it as well. So the content is generally relating to those themes that you started with. Alison, thanks for that. Eve, did you want to give us your contribution on how you found this process?
Yes, the process itself was really helpful. And for me, because I'm so bloody inconsistent, when I get back into it, I can pick up right where I left off. You know, there's that, wait, what was I thinking at the time? Once this is on paper, you've eliminated that. And it's one of those things that's helped make things work in spite of my best efforts. So I highly recommend it.
No, absolutely. It nails down, so you don't get caught in that indecision or indecision paralysis of, oh, I could do this or I could do that, or it's down, it's written, just do it. You know, and we're only talking in those particular ones, those articles, it's only 300 words, and you can actually bang that out quite quickly. You've probably done it already. So yeah, but once you write it down, it's there, set in stone. Now, I'd go back to what Alison was saying. There's nothing that means that you can't change it, etc. But once it's down in writing, preferably an Excel sheet if you're me, then it holds you to account. And the green and red also really holds you to account as well. So yeah, no, great. Okay. So I think that's really us for this week. Next week, we're getting into launch sequences. This is technically the last week of this part of the course. So we're going to do a reasonably long session on launch sequences, but I'm seriously considering actually doing another short course immediately following this one on a much more detailed way of doing the launch sequence. And for you, Alison and Eve, it's kind of what we did way back in April based on a marketing strategy. So it's launch sequence, the basics of what we're going to do next week. We'll give you the basic steps that you need to go through in the prep. But I'm seriously thinking that we might do a much more detailed version for people who want to launch in the new year. And it gives a step-by-step process all the way through. So before I close the call, anybody got any other questions? Suzanne or Emma? Or I know Shelley was here earlier on. I don't know if she's still here. Suzanne.
No, are you looking for us to do the whole year, Guy, or?
No. At this stage, just do the first 3 months.
Okay.
Because you've only actually done the content plan, the detailed content plan for that first 3 months. Because you got those 14. You did those. Well, you'll see when you do. You did those 14 pieces. Well, those 14 daily actions are what goes in this plan.
Right.
Okay. And bear in mind that I think it's highly likely that your content will adjust. Your monthly themes might adjust. As Alison was just saying, she did a poll of what people would like to see. And so they adjusted them. She's adjusted her monthly themes. And at that stage, once you've settled on them, when you get closer to that, the end of that 3 month period, then do the next quarter, and then the next quarter, and then the next quarter. Certainly your year in a life, the monthly themes I suggest you do now, but the detailed content now, and you do the first 90 days out.
Okay.
Cool. Emma, you happy enough?
Yeah, that's just an ordinary Excel sheet, isn't it? There's nothing,
special.
Because it
No,
looks pretty cool.
Sorry?
That's no problem.
What's the difference between Google Sheets and Excel?
Yeah, I'm not really okay with that.
Okay, so what I've done, let me just go back, is on this, when you open the Excel sheet, Emma, you'll see that there are tabs at the bottom of an Excel sheet.
Yes.
Okay, so you can't see it here, but on the one that's going to be that you'll get in the post, you'll see I've tabbed it: step 1, step 2, step 3. Okay, just download it, copy it to Google Sheets if you want to, if you don't have Microsoft Word, and it's all there. And if you've any issues, just get me on a call and I'll share a screen with you, and we'll take you through.
Well, it looks pretty self-explanatory, and I suppose for me, like I kind of said before, because of my subject matter, we actually have a lot of content.
Absolutely.
Already, that could go on that straight away. So it's just going to be a matter of me. So I'm terrible. I put everything on paper. I write everything down as opposed to typing it all in. So, I mean, that looks okay.
I've already accused one person this week of not doing their homework because there's the dog out their homework. It's like, I've written it down. So yeah. What's your dog called?
Emma.
You just need to type it out.
So Emma.
Yeah, we saw that. Eve, Eve, you've just muted yourself.
Yeah, so
the camera, Eve.
Perfect.
Right. Yeah, no, Excel doesn't work for me, or I won't work with it. So I use the big old accounting sheets. Gives me all the columns and things I need. And
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That you can't share that online, unfortunately. So if you can do it, electronically, that would be great. Because then
An Excel sheet.
Yeah.
I'd say I'd get all that content in, because I kind of have it wrote down, so it's just a matter of me putting in that and then share with everybody to make sure I'm kind of on the right path. Because as Eve was saying earlier, inconsistency. Well, there's one thing about ADHD, and the only consistent thing about ADHD is that it's inconsistent. So trying to ensure this all comes together is going to be fun.
Okay, cool, good stuff. Right, any more? Are we good?
Can I just answer your question about the Excel and the Google?
Yeah.
The difference is Microsoft own Excel, so Excel is part of Microsoft's own package, and a Google Sheet is owned by Google.
So it's the same thing, really.
It's the same thing, though. Excel, to me, there's a lot more functionality in an Excel sheet than there is in a Google Sheet.
Yeah.
For that purpose, I think it's fine.
Yeah, for this purpose, absolutely. In this purpose, I think it's absolutely fine, and it should copy straight in. Yeah, certainly. If I was then going to start building spreadsheets and that sort of stuff, I wouldn't touch Google Sheets. I'd be Excel all the way.
Yeah,
all the way.
Thank
Okay,
you.
cool. Right, I'm going to hopefully stop the recording. Well, certainly, I'll stop the sharing to start with, and stop the recording. So.